Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining this webinar between Bitfreighter, Degroot, and Revenova. My name is Mike Marut. I'm the marketing manager here at Revenova. Wanted to just get started with some introductions. Adam, if you want to get started, talk about yourself a little bit, Degroot
Yeah.
Logistics, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Adam Degroot of Degroot Logistics. Started Degroot Logistics about 12 years ago. So we're a 3PL out of Chicago here. We focus on the food and beverage space. And, my background is in the produce industry. So I run our family of companies. We've got a vegetable farm, and a produce brokerage business in that family. And yeah, we're in early I don't know what number. I always tell people we were like the third customer of Revenova. We're like in the top 10, I know, but
Yeah,
early adopter there and been partners with Bitfreighter for a long time. So yeah, really excited to chat today.
sweet. And Dave, tell us about a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Bitfreighter.
Yeah, Dave McCoy, VP of Sales at Bitfreighter. I've been with Bitfreighter since almost the beginning of Bitfreighter. And before that, I knew Adam for many, many years when I was at DAT. I spent 13 years at DAT or DAT and worked a lot in the TMS world there. And yeah, Adam left the DAT TMS to be one of the first customers of Revenova. And yeah, I mean, over the years at that, I heard a lot of frustrations with like integrating to EDI and integrations in general, and how difficult it was, either with like the support involved or why the price was so high and why there wasn't anything else out there. And when I met Brad Perling at now Bitfreighter, founded Bitfreighter, he asked the same question to me and why it's so expensive, why is it so hard? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know why it's like that and why it seems like EDI is something that is like shoved upon you instead of something you embrace and as a broker. So when I told him that, his mind started racing with the ideas of coming up with something a little more modern on the EDI side of things, and then COVID hit, and we all went home for a couple weeks, and we all played video games or whatever, and he came up with a business plan for Bitfreighter, and it's been great ever since, and we've really been able to tackle all those frustrations that the industry had been seeing for so many years, and yeah, here we are.
Cool. Thanks, Dave. And yeah, just finally, my name is Mike Marut. I'm the marketing manager here at Revenova. We are a TMS provider. We are the TMS for Degroot Logistics. Bitfreighter is one of our great partners on the EDI side. We're just doing this webinar today to talk about, really what brokerages should be looking for or questions they should be asking when they are evaluating their EDI vendors, their TMS vendors, and kind of going from there. But first, let's start with Dave. Can you tell me a little about? I mean, you mentioned the pain points that people will bring up around EDI, but can you talk about why EDI matters and where brokerages struggle when they don't have it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I mentioned, EDI was something that felt like it was being shoved down your throat, and that was always odd to me for all those years at that, because EDI, the way I saw it, was something that provides like incredible efficiency and automation, even like way back in the day. I mean, you're talking about your tenders being accepted automatically, built in your TMS automatically. Anytime you go make a status update, it's sent out automatically. And it was like brokers were always pushing away from it. And the reason they were pushing away from it is because it was so expensive and because it couldn't justify the relationship with one of their customers. And I was always just like, that seems crazy to me. You would turn down a customer because they want you to have this amazing automation. So EDI or like API, any kind of integration that allows tenders to come across and have really a broker carrier TMS talk to a shipper platform is so important because it solidifies the relationship that you have with your customer. And if there's any reason that you think that's being shoved down your throat and it doesn't justify it, then maybe you don't have the right EDI partner. And it's something that that shouldn't be transactional. It shouldn't be anything like that where you get almost punished for having higher volumes. It should be something where it's the flat charge for whatever customer you add on, and you don't have to worry about how much it's going to cost if they send you more freight. So we really, I think it's so important, and I think it's to the point where what we want as an integration company is to allow brokers and carriers to be the ones making the calls to their customers to get them on EDI. Like it's so imperative for them because of all the automation that I described earlier of like these things, the tenders are coming over to you. No one has to build them. They're being accepted automatically, or there's rules in place to accept them based off of whatever lane it is, or all that stuff is happening in the background. No one has to go in there and spend time and money to build that stuff. No one has to spend time to go to a portal to make sure that you say it delivered. All that stuff just happens as you work in your TMS. So yeah, I mean it's extremely vital in my opinion to be connected to your customers, and it just like makes everything more sticky. And if it's easy to do it along the process of keeping your relationship sticky with your customer, then like there's no reason not to do it.
Yeah, I mean the automation, kind of getting rid of the manual, so many manual pieces, part of it. That's an important thing for Revenova as well, right? Like, bringing on partners like Bitfreighter to help automate some of those processes and get things moving faster and improving the efficiency and all those buzzwords, right? Just so incredibly important. I mean, Adam, you're a user of both. Have you found that to be the case? I mean, what were you doing before that even prompted you to change to Bitfreighter and to
Yeah.
Revenova?
Yeah, so when I started Degroot Logistics 12 years ago, I'll preface this like very much a non-technical founder. So when making vendor selection choices and just like looking at the field, whether it's for TMS or EDI or any solution, um, that was always part of when we were a smaller team in the early days, just the ability to kind of implement something quickly, and working with parties that could work effectively with non-technical founders. I mean, that was kind of a priority. So, we had some legacy EDI providers, and it was very much, those early days, have a conversation with a shipper. You get fortunately get a chance to get onboarded. This is one of the requirements. This is the incumbent who we primarily use for EDI. So we kind of rolled with that, and there wasn't early on like that much of a vendor selection process. And then as we got more familiar with how everything works, and that concept which Dave alluded to, the character-based billing it still is wild to me that's like everybody was just that was standard practice for decades, and it's wild for a lot of reasons, just the way the tech works. But like when you get on a per shipper basis, like when you're paying per character, the same transmissions, whether they're orders or invoicing or status updates to different types of EDI codes, is wildly different. There's some are more efficient than others. Some shippers are more efficient than others with how they construct their EDI. So some of our early, war stories that really caused us to start looking for other options were it was a particular shipper where it was just like, we kind of had an idea and budgeted like, all right, it's about X dollars a load, for EDI. And then it came back and it was like 10X one month where we dug into it. And there was just whether it was poorly coded or poorly constructed. And we're like, well, this isn't, we need this addressed. And they're like, no, that's just how it is. Like, that's how
Or they ask you to send status updates every 5 minutes, and you're sending maybe the same status update every 5 minutes, and you're paying for every single one of them.
yeah.
It's just, yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. You
And
can't
it,
forecast
and
for that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So we had enough of those experiences. We're like, all right, what else is out there? And I want to say when we bumped into each other, it was kind of this chance meeting at a food shippers conference. I'm like, I think it's Dave McCoy over there. Like, and I hadn't talked to him in years, but then really, got to know you a little better, got to know Brad, and it was clear from like a half-hour conversation with him, like just part of this vendor selection process. I've always liked being an early user, with with folks, and you get a certain rapport with some of these teams, and there's some, you can kind of help guide what gets worked on and built. But like there's a clear passion, like, I think there's a lot of content out there on this, but like, the Bitfreighter team, like they're from the top down, like in it for the right reasons. Like this isn't like a, private equity backed, like, somebody there, these guys aren't looking to flip a logistics tech company quickly. It was like building it for the right reasons. So those are the kind of companies that there's the quantitative, like, all right, what's the pricing? What's the functionality? But like way more important, if you're like us, like we're growth oriented, we want to, how our teams integrate is crucial. Like working with folks like that are, just at the core, like have the right culture and principles, like that's always been a big thing for us too. So yeah, it's been cool. We're Bitfreighter One users too. So like just um it just makes sense. It's clearly a structured incentive to where it's like a win-win. It's not and we're so much other incumbents, other players out there, like it's very much not the case.
Being an early adopter of both Revenova and Bitfreighter, I mean, what was implementation like for you? I mean, there are so many parts of that process that it's great to have the rapport. It's great to have those deep relationships and kind of help guide the technology vendor a little bit. But what was kind of the process like to get through all that for you?
Yeah, no, great question. I gotta really go down memory lane for the Revenova, piece of it. I want to say it's been 10 years. But prior to that, we were using Salesforce. And, again, like Dave mentioned, we were key point users a long time ago. We had an on-prem server. And again, as a non-technical, I'm like, I don't know what the hell it plugs into where. So we kind of got to the point where like, all right, we're figuring out how to use this. Like, there's a lot we want to do with it, customize. And the response we got was like, no, that's not, you're not going to do that. Like so we really started lightly looking. I honestly was looking more at the time of getting the technical bandwidth on our team to kind of make the most out of what we had. And pretty early on, somebody had a Salesforce consultant who was like, "Have you heard of it? Have you heard of Revenova?" And this was, the concept of a cloud-based TMS was extremely novel then. And for us, it was just the ease of use, and you get a lot more, just being on the Salesforce platform and the other integrations and customization. Because we're a small company then, and iterating and building different automations and things like that. Like we went all in on the Salesforce piece. So again, it was like just the easiest company to work with for a non-technical person. So I think that was the biggest factor for me initially. Yeah.
And then what about like for Bitfreighter? I mean, the implementation process there, from what I've heard, from mutual customers, is that it's pretty seamless.
Yeah, the initial onboarding was very straightforward, very packaged up. But then, I think the most important, like really the most important aspect, it's like the individual implementations with customers and shippers as we onboard them. And that's only gotten better and better. As the Bitfreighter scale, they're getting more effective. Like there's more mutual customers. But yeah, I think the most recent one we just did, it was like under 3 days, from when we, kicked off the project. And that's like unbelievable. So for us, we're not the largest 3PL out there. It allows us in the eyes of that large shipper that, we were working with and getting onboarded. And we were like the fastest EDI implementation that they had ever had. So, you can start off on a really strong footing. I mean, there's just so many positives that come from that, and the momentum with getting, the worst thing you can have is like, you get through all the gates in the process of getting onboarded, and then it takes a month or weeks of, these email chains that are 120 emails long with four parties. And it's like, so many of our war stories are that, where it's just like, it's, it's, uh, it's crazy. It's very frustrating for everybody. So I can't emphasize enough how that, like the shipper rollout piece of it has just been the best part of it, I think. Yeah.
That's
Excuse
no, that's awesome. When you were doing your evaluation of Bitfreighter, of Revenova, despite how long ago it was there anything that you identified as like red flags for other that you saw at other vendors? Don't need to name names or anything, but like any red flags or on the flip side of that, anything that you like needed to have when you were shopping around.
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think in the case of Bitfreighter, it was very much I would say it wasn't as formal of a process where we're like, all right, we started with 10, we narrowed it down. It was just such a no-brainer, and I think they definitely set themselves outside the pack just in the product offering and just the team. So many of those early conversations, like you can kind of tell when you are having conversations with a new vendor, like the first few weeks, the first few interactions, like I don't want to say that's as good as it's going to get, but if it's not, if you don't start off on a strong foot, it's you kind of you shouldn't be surprised when things kind of fall apart later too. And not having and again, my experience kind of kicking things off was the relationship with Dave and Brad, but it was a pretty seamless, excuse me, we weren't handed off from like a biz dev team, onto other folks and all that. So I think that's been a big part of it. I think there's got to be an alignment on the top level, to kick things off. So that's what we've always. And so for those instances where, because we were a smaller shop at the time, like you don't get access to the like, if you can't get a conversation with somebody above some certain level, like that's, again, that's a challenge too. So yeah, I would say in the case of Revenova, it was a much more exhaustive, like looked at everything that was out there at the time. And it was it was clear that the things that I didn't know what we would need 2 or 3 or 5 years out, but it was very obvious that Revenova was going to be the partner that could be not be flexible in the sense, but like just the customization, the opportunities. You don't really know until you start working with somebody what their roadmap looks like and the pace of how those improvements happen. And so much of working with the whole build versus buy thing, like working with great third parties is it just gets better all the time too. So that was very apparent from early on. That again, that wasn't a reason we weren't aware of that before we saw, when we made the decision to kick things off. It was very apparent, in the first year for sure. So I think like any relationship, as a 3PL, if we expect, we want great service, like you've got to contribute to that too. We've tried to be very proactive with like, some of the product development conversations or like this is just like even the wish list stuff. I think and this was true then and it's still true now with both of you guys. The receptiveness to just, understand like fleshing out those ideas and kind of building things around them. Like that's where the magic happens too. So I think those have been, crucial. Like we did a little bit. I mean, we didn't go through this whole process of like talking to other users. I don't know if I don't want to say I wouldn't trust what other, so it's always weird going to competitors asking how they feel about stuff. But I've tried to go out of my way, and it's part of why I'm here too today is, preaching about how great it is to work with you guys because we want to see you succeed too. I mean, I think that's a reality. You're both Bitfreighter and Revenova. I would love if nobody heard of them, and it's like this special, like we just get the benefit of it. But no, we very much want to see you guys succeed and contribute to that too. So yeah, but it's a process, it's a relationship, and both sides have to kind of invest in that too.
Yeah.
And you guys took kind of like an interesting approach with us going early on, that we really don't see a whole lot. Like if someone wants to sign on with Bitfreighter, usually, if it's either a new customer and they have a shipper, then they just need a new connection started up. Or it's like you guys where you had a whole bunch of EDI set up already, and what we usually see is everybody like this, they make the decision to switch it over and then we switch everything over. And what you guys did, which is a little bit different and interesting, and really the cool thing from our perspective is you were like, we'll start out with just a little bit just to like test them out. And so that you had EDI or API going on like two different EDI platforms at once, to see what we were really about. And then, once you got the taste of it, if you want to say that. Then you started like, putting more on there, putting more on there, and then decided to move everything over there. And then, like you were talking about, you're now a Bitfreighter One customer. And for all of those who don't know what the hell that is, it's we just have an unlimited everything kind of plan. So we have customers that just pay us as X amount and they can do whatever they want and send us anything. And so that's when it really starts to unlock like, you have possibly a new customer that you want to contact and they grant you lanes and you're like, well, it's in the old world, maybe it wouldn't be worth it to go ahead and put them on EDI. Maybe we'll hold off. But now that is totally freed up for you. And you can say, sure, Adam, we're we're paying this amount anyway. And then you mix in our quoting product into that as well. And now you're quoting out of our platform. Anything that's awarded comes right back through our platform, built in Revenova. You get to see your win-loss on everything you're automatically quoting. So yeah, it's cool to see like the startup to, the full package. And I think that really speaks volumes to what we're doing and how it's working and succeeding for you.
I wanted to ask one last thing, Adam, before we get to a couple audience questions here. And then we'll probably be out of time in those right after that too. Any like tips for people who are looking for an EDI vendor or looking for a TMS? What sort of questions should they be asking? What sort of things should they be looking for? And you kind of alluded to it earlier, being able to get to that highest level of leadership to be able to talk to them at some point. But are there any other tips that you would recommend when people are looking around?
Yeah, kind of two separate answers. For EDI, and most folks would go to like, brokers and try to get references that way. But, really with shippers too, having those conversations like the IT departments, and some of these folks probably aren't used to getting these calls, but just asking them who they enjoy working with when it comes to integration or debugging stuff or troubleshooting issues. And why it's so great to work with Bitfreighter, and it's, these conversations, like I said earlier, it's like there's some email chains if something breaks with like several companies, with dozens of people on it. And it's pointing the finger like, well, your next action item, you got to do this, or like just waiting for testing and things like that. And it really comes down to like just removing the friction and latency from EDI onboarding and troubleshooting. It's just the ease of working with the team and the quick communication and quick turnaround, and it's very proactive. I'd say we're more plugged in, and our whole organization, all sorts of different individuals are a lot more plugged in and have relationships with Bitfreighter folks than we have with most. It's remarkable too. So that's, I would say just referrals from any other counterparties than you kind of think about initially. But on the TMS side, where again, I think it's like finding the right, partner that fits where you are too as a company. When we were a much smaller company, we're a few years old, we're bootstrapped, so working with a firm that was like relatively new as well, and like you guys weren't that, I don't know what year, Revenova was founded, but it was pretty early on, right around then. And
Yeah,
like,
2014.
yeah, as you kind of grow and mature, like you guys have, that growth arc is continuing along. So it's like you really gotta find someone that kind of fits that, where you are on the stage of your company's life too. But it's really to have these successful relationships, you gotta start like great understanding and like, alignment at a high level. So if you're shopping around, for I don't want to I don't want to say something that's going to get Charles a bunch of calls here, so maybe I don't mind that. But like if like engage these executives and folks that have been there a long time, higher up, and just just to have that to kind of start building those bridges too.
Hmm.
But I would say once that decision is made, and you kind of kick it off, it's like the work's not done. Then it's like you really the goal here and the opportunity is just that both parties are growing and improving. So contributing that however you can, I think whether that's us doing what we can to help you guys get more customers and grow the business, but also, like I said, the product roadmap stuff. we try to have conversations all the time, like where we want to be in 2 years. And like, you got to have those face to face, those like sit downs and really share that. And like, that's kind of how I look at it. I mean, I much prefer a world where we don't have to do all this in house. And it's like, we just to keep up with the pace of how the industry and the world's changing so quickly and the implementation of new tech and stuff. So that's really the biggest thing. But but yeah, then I'd say too, you know, and this is always something that I found what was interesting when we're talking to shippers and like the questions they don't ask to brokers when they qualify them, it's like who owns it and what's the plan? Like is there an exit strategy? And like we're, again, bootstrap company, part of family companies. We're gonna be doing this for a long time. This is not a PE, flip in and out. And I think having vendors, tech vendors that are of the same, like same fashion there, like is crucial. Like there's all sorts of stories from the past few years of uh, like the
Mhm.
logistics tech boom bust,
Mhm.
and it's a costly decision when you pick to run with somebody from a central tech function and then they're, out of business or, or something, or they're like, hemorrhaging cash and they're struggling. Um, so really you want to avoid those situations too. So I'd say that alignment at a top level and really investment in the relationship, are the big ones.
Sweet. And then we have a question here that's in the chat that I think is probably meant for Dave. Have you seen any upgrades regarding Canadian banking and EDI? I guess there was some challenges of identifying accounts in Canada or something, but it sounds like it's an EDI challenge that they're facing.
Yeah, if there's like a different kind of invoice that needs to be sent out of our system, I mean, that would be kind of a new thing to us, I think. But I mean, we can pass anything through. If the TMS can send, a certain kind of special message that's outside of the normal standard set of EDI,
Hmm.
then yeah, we can be right there with them.
Okay, very cool. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat here. So are there any closing comments, Adam, Dave, anything else you wanted to add before we close out here?
Ah, nothing here. I
Dave?
get a favor with Revenova and Bitfreighter now. I'm like,
Yeah, I'm honored to be here. Thanks a lot. Yeah, if anybody has any questions that pop up, and Stefan, if I didn't answer your question, feel free to reach out. Happy to talk about it.
Cool. Thank you everyone for joining us today on, hanging out with Adam, Dave, and myself, kind of talking about EDI, TMS, the relationship tandem there, and what 3PLs and brokerages should be looking to questions that they should be asking when evaluating these vendors. This is also being recorded, so we'll be sure to distribute it to everyone who's been here today, or if you want, share that, you're always able to. If you have any questions about Revenova, feel free to reach out, sales@revenova.com. For Bitfreighter, Dave, what's the best way for someone to get a hold of you guys?
Sales@bitfreighter.com.
Perfect. And Adam, how about for Degroot Logistics?
yeah, Adam B at degrootlogistics.com.
Sweet.
Yep.
Thanks so much, everyone. Appreciate it. Have a great day. And today's Thursday, almost the weekend. Have a great weekend too. See you guys
Appreciate it.
later.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys. See ya.
Thanks. See ya.